Hi everyone. Today we're going to learn how you can find the balancing point of a triangle. The balancing point is also called the centroid or the center of gravity. You can imagine if we had a triangle and we cut it out of cardboard and then we placed it on the tip of a pencil. It would stay perfectly balanced if we placed it at the centroid. In this example, we have 3 points that form a triangle. Let's draw these 3 points on our x and y axis, just like this. Now, in order to find the balancing point of this triangle, we are going to need to find the point of intersection between the three medians of this triangle. A median is a line that connects the vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side of the triangle, just like this. Every triangle has three medians, one for each vertex. So I've drawn one of the medians in black, the other in blue, and the final one in orange. And these three medians intersect right here. And that intersection point is the balancing point. And so now we have an idea of how we would solve this problem. We need to find the point of intersection between all three medians. So how do we do that? Well, let's start by working with our first median, which is the line that I've drawn in black. In order to describe a line, we need 2 points. We already have one, which is the vertex 0, 0. But our second point will be the midpoint of that side of the triangle. So how do we find the midpoint of this side of the triangle? Well, we know that this side contains these 2 points, 2, 6, and 7, 0. We can use those 2 points and this equation to find the midpoint. Looking at the x part of this equation, we have x1 plus x2 divided by 2. Looking at the y part of this equation, we have y1 plus y2 divided by 2. You can replace your x's and y's, and then when you do the math, you can see that our ordered pair for the midpoint would be 9 over 2, comma 3. And so now we have 2 points. With these 2 points, we can create the equation that describes this line. This linear equation will be in the form y equals mx plus b. In order to build out this equation, we need to find the slope. The slope of a line can be found by doing y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So using the 2 points that we have for our line, we can find the slope, and when you do the math, you can see that it's equal to 2 over 3. Now we need to find the y-intercept. Now, if you're keen, you'll be able to see that the y-intercept for this line is 0, because that's where it crosses the y-axis. But I can show you this algebraically as well. All we have to do is write out the equation for our line. And now, let's replace the x and the y with one of our 2 points. In this case, I'll use 0, 0, and then you can see that the y-intercept is equal to 0. And now we have the equation for our line, which would be y is equal to 2 over 3x. And now I know that was a lot of work just to get an equation for the median, but we've got 2 more medians to go, so we need to do that again. For our next median, we're going to look at the line that I drew in blue. Here, we need to find the midpoint of the opposite side, and so we're going to use the points 0, 0, and 7, 0. So all you have to do is plug in your x's and y's into the midpoint equation, and when you do the math, you should get a midpoint of 7 over 2, comma 0. So now we have 2 points to describe our line, and we can use those 2 points to create our y equals mx plus b equation. The first step is to find the slope. And when you do the math, you should find that the slope of this line is equal to -4. Now that we have the slope, we can find the y-intercept. All we need to do is write out our y equals mx plus b equation, and then substitute your x and y values from one of our 2 points. And when you do the math, you should see that the y-intercept is equal to 14. And now we have the equation for our second median, which is y is equal to -4x plus 14. Whew, okay, we're on to our last one. Now let's look at the median that I drew in orange. Our first step is to find the midpoint of the opposite side. The opposite side is made up of the points 0, 0, and 2, 6. Using those points and the midpoint equation, you can do the math and see that the midpoint of our third median would be 1, 3. And now we have the 2 points, which we will use to find our y equals mx plus b equation. The first step is to find the slope. And when you do the math, you should find that the slope is equal to negative 1 over 2. Now that we have the slope, we can find the y-intercept. And again, we can do this by writing y equals mx plus b, and then replacing the x and y values with one of our points. And when you do the math, you should find that the y-intercept is equal to 7 over 2. And now we have our equation for the third and final line, which is y is equal to negative 1 over 2x plus 7 over 2. Okay, let's take a step back. We have 3 medians for this triangle, and we found the equations for each one of those lines. Now we need to use those equations to find the point of intersection, and that would be our balancing point. So how do you find the point of intersection between 3 straight lines? Well, I'm going to start by looking at the first 2 lines. And I'm going to use a method called substitution to find the point of intersection. Once I have that point, I'm going to check if the third line passes through it. If it does, then we can say that that is the point of intersection between all 3 lines. So let's start by finding the point of intersection with the first 2 lines. I told you I was going to use the method of substitution. And this is really quite simple. Our first line says that y is equal to 2 over 3x. I can take that value for y and substitute it into my second equation. And now I have an equation that says 2 over 3x is equal to negative 4x plus 14. From here, all I need to do is solve for x. And when you do that, you can see that x is equal to 3. Now don't stop there. We have the x value, but we also need the y value. It's super easy though. All we need to do is take x and plug it back into one of our equations. So if I do that using the first line, we can see that y is equal to 2. And that is our point of intersection, 3, 2. And if we look back at our original diagram, you can actually see that we had roughly predicted that the point of intersection would be at the point 3, 2. Isn't that cool? Now we're not done though. We need to go and check that our third line also passes through that point. And this is super easy. All we need to do is take the equation for our third line and then replace x and y with our point of intersection. And when we do that, we're checking to see if the right side of the equation is equal to the left side of the equation. And in this case, yes, the third line passes through that point, and so that point represents our balancing point. Whew, that was a lot of work to find a single point, but that's how math goes sometimes. Let me know in the comments if you actually have a more efficient way of finding the balancing point of a triangle. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.